Hi, I'm Emily Bodie and thank you for joining me today as we discuss the opportunities available in law and criminology at Victoria University. Joining me, as always, I have a wonderful panel of experts, so I'll waste no time in introducing them. First of all, we have Dr. Roger Fernandez, practicing barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Victoria, amongst a host of other roles and responsibilities. Hello, Roger.
Hi, Emily.
We also have Sasha Ann Suzman, who is a VU alumnus for our Bachelor of Laws Honours program and also a volunteer at West Justice. Welcome, Sasha.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for having me.
And last but certainly not least, we have Patrick Rose, a VU alumnus who is working in the youth and family violence sector as a lawyer. Hello and welcome, Patrick.
Thanks very much for having me.
Now, I think we'll start with you, Roger. As a practitioner, as well as an academic in the area of law and justice, what advice do you have for prospective students interested in this field?
It's an interesting and very challenging discipline. Since I've been a practitioner for over 30 years now, and as I've mentioned previously, I only look that I'm 21 years of age. And law does tend to age you a bit, although Patrick might disagree with me. It's a very interesting, and especially the area of law that I practice in, which is administrative and migration law. It's a very challenging and interesting area of the law that also involves assisting humans at all times.
So we would have seen a lot of change around this area, particularly with the COVID-19 pandemic happening at the moment. How have we found the law or practicing of law impacted during this time?
It's a bit more difficult in the sense that obtaining instructions by having clients meet you face to face, it's definitely proved challenging, but it's still an interesting area to practice in. Because as you know, with the significant biosecurity legislation and all that's come into play, for lawyers, I think it's a pretty interesting area, but at the same time, it does add a stressful dimension to it.
And are we anticipating that graduate roles or roles for lawyers will continue to grow, or will they continue to be impacted by the ongoing pandemic?
I think in the short term, there'll probably be some impact. But I've noticed with the courts and the tribunals, we're quickly adapting, and humans are pretty good at adapting. Some lawyers are, being a very conservative profession, that we've adapted to electronic communications, using trial by video. A lot of things are improving, but it takes time.
Flexibility is so important in a modern workforce as well.
It's critical.
So Sasha, welcome. Congratulations on completing your Bachelor of Laws at Victoria University. During your time at the university, you were heavily involved with the Student Society. Tell us a bit about your role there and what the Student Society does.
Yeah, so the Student Society of VU, it's called Dictum Society. So they run lots of different events and initiatives for the law students. To help the students out academically in their career progression, and also they run a few fun events just to make uni as fun and interesting as possible. So they're a not-for-profit organisation and they're completely run by the students themselves. So you know that whatever the Student Society does, you know that they have the interests of students in mind first and foremost. So there was a few different positions in the Student Society. There are the executive positions like president, vice president, and amongst the director positions, there's the director of education, which I was last year. So in that role, I ran a few educational workshops and seminars and a few programs. And one of those was the mentoring program, the peer-to-peer mentoring program, which paired up some students in higher year levels and lower year levels, and the students in the higher year levels help those students in the lower year levels, just help them with their assignments, with whatever they're studying, and just to navigate uni in general. So it was a really great experience being the director of education. I also stepped into the vice president position for a little bit, and also the secretary position. So I gained a lot of leadership skills and advocacy skills on behalf of other students at uni. And it was just really fun being involved in that. The Student Society also runs, like I said before, really fun events. So we had a trivia night, And we also did the law ball at the end of the year, which we have it every year. It's really fun. Students love it. So yeah, lots of different programs to help students out, and lots of fun things to get away from your studies, which you need every now and then. So that's what we do.
Wonderful. And I know that Victoria University, since transitioning to the block model, we're really advocating for students being able to access more help from their teachers or from their lecturers in those small class sizes. But really interesting to see that you're able to set something up where there was peer-to-peer mentoring involved as well. So really exciting opportunity for students to have.
Yeah, it was really helpful. I heard a lot of students got a lot out of it. So it was really successful.
So in addition to those peer-to-peer mentoring opportunities, Sasha, something that's really important in most fields, particularly in law, is the opportunity for internships or placements throughout the course. Tell us a bit about your experience with internships and how they've set you up to enter the workforce now that you're graduating.
Yeah, so, well, just to give a little definition, so internships or the placements that VU offers, they're just the opportunity to work in a legal organisation, usually just to get some experience in the workforce. And usually they're unpaid. So they prepare you, they give you the experience working in the workforce to get you ready for when you actually go out and look for a job after your degree. So VU offers lots of different internships. They've partnered with places like Victoria Legal Aid and West Justice, the State Trustees, what else? There's the Young Workers Centre and also the Victorian Bar. So I participated in a few of them. I went to Victoria Legal Aid first, and I participated in the Duty Lawyer Service Program. So I worked at the Werribee Magistrates Court, and I was assisting running the Duty Lawyer list in the criminal law area. So that was really interesting. I got to liaise with some police prosecutors and develop the police briefs and whatever else needed to be organised for the duty lawyers so they could represent our clients. So that was really great. And then I moved on to West Justice, working in their Sunshine Youth Office. I love that. I got to help out disadvantaged and vulnerable young people. I got to work in many different areas of law at West Justice. They're not confined to just one area. So I got to experience a range of different situations and a range of different areas of law, helping young people. And I stayed there beyond the term of my internship, and I'm still volunteering there today because I really love the organisation. And I also participated in the barrister shadowing program. So I got to work with a environment and planning law barrister, and I got to do some really complex legal research and prepare him for a VCAT matter, which was really interesting. Never thought I'd experience something like that. So yeah, I got to experience lots of different areas of law, lots of different legal environments, and do lots of different things to gain that experience that you need to get a job later on, and also work out where I want to go in the future. Yeah, and gain experience in those specific areas of law. So I'm ready to get a job once I graduate.
So it sounds like you've had a little bit of experience in a wide range and a really varying range of roles, Sasha.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea about what you want to do now that you're graduating?
Well, yes. I'd like to go into criminal law and help younger people, particularly within youth crime. I worked in a lot of West Justice in their youth clinic, and I think that's what I want to do from now on.
Well, probably a very auspicious meeting then, Sasha, you and Patrick today. So Patrick, you would have been in Sasha's position not too long ago, and you actually moved into working in legal aid after graduating. Tell us a bit about your path from completing your studies to where you are now.
Yeah, a lot of crossover there with Sasha. I started off, before I came to Vic Uni, I'd spent quite a bit of time doing more kind of general work in the community sector, primarily with recently arrived communities, and then spent a bit of time at the ASRC, where I decided to get back into law. And once I went to Vic Uni, I started off also at the Sunshine Youth Legal Centre, and then from there volunteered with the School Lawyer Project in their flagship project at Hoppers Crossing, which involves a lawyer who's funded by West Justice, operating out of the school, providing a lot of early intervention for young people, a lot of education, trying to decrease the, I guess, intersection of young people and the criminal justice system in particular, and the justice system more generally. And that was a fantastic experience, and just being able to spend a lot of time face to face with young people, not just in a sort of professional environment, but building those relationships. So when there is a legal issue that arises, you've already kind of got some level of rapport, and decreasing the kind of stratification that you often get between legal service provision and young people in particular. Also spent a bit of time in Darwin with NAJA, working on their Royal Commission submissions. Only a short period of time, around a month there. What else? I've spent a bit of time in the public sector as well. Did an internship with the Department of Premier and Cabinet, and continued working there throughout my studies. And when I finished, I was lucky enough to find employment quite quickly at Legal Aid. I returned to Northeast Victoria, where I'm currently practicing, and started working as a criminal lawyer in Shepparton with Victoria Legal Aid. It was very close to where I grew up. We were an hour and a half, which was a nice and circular journey. And was there for, I think, just a bit over 18 months until I've moved into my current role, which is, as I mentioned, youth and family violence lawyer. So I'm funded 2 days a week to provide family violence duty lawyer services to the Specialist Family Violence Court in Shepparton. And the other 3 days a week, I work in a new outreach project, which is a project that's shared between the Golden Valley Community Legal Centre, which employs me, and the Lighthouse Project, which is a youth support service in town, which provide services through, one of the services they provide is through a youth hub, where I'm based 3 days a week, and catering to some often particularly vulnerable young people who use the space.
Really interesting, Patrick, how you spoke about a lot of the legal profession focusing on crime prevention as well, not just the after effects of representation.
Yeah, I think particularly with young people, it's quite clear that engagement with the particularly the criminal justice system can have pretty long-term, quite negative impacts on a young person's life trajectory. So trying to be in a position where we can provide legal services earlier on, provide advice around so young people understand their rights, understand where potentially they might be engaged in behaviour that might bring them into contact with the police, and also how to navigate those interactions if they're going to have interactions with the justice system. And also just starting to break down some of the preconceptions around what lawyers are. I think young people, particularly some young people, view lawyers as an extension of the courts or an extension of the police, where her role is obviously very different from that. And being able to have those discussions in a less formal, less stressful manner than in a courtroom or in an office environment is, I think, very, very beneficial.
So you've spoken at length about your involvement with youth and family violence, the legal services there, and about supporting young communities or disenfranchised communities. What was it that first piqued your interest or first set you up to go into that area?
Yeah, when I went to study at Vic Uni, that was actually my second crack at doing a law degree. When I first started, I really didn't enjoy law, and I guess had difficulty mapping it onto a career that I wanted. And I think spending a bit of time in the community sector, like outside of the legal specific community sector, working in a, I guess, more, I don't know, frontline service role where I felt like I could support people, I felt was quite exciting. And particularly in my time at the ASRC and West Justice kind of showed me that having those legal skills would enable me to potentially have quite a positive impact in the lives of the people that I worked with. And so I think working in community sector is what I always wanted to do, but it took a little while to work out how I could fit that into a legal career. And I've really, really enjoyed working in crime space and family violence space as well. And particularly with young people, they're fantastic to work with. It's challenging at sometimes and it's frustrating at times, but it's also incredibly rewarding. And it's fantastic work to do.
So you came to Victoria University as a mature age student, Patrick, having attempted to study previously. What was it about studying at Victoria University that you felt set you up for success to complete that degree and get into the industry?
Yeah, I liked the kind of integration of all the internship programs. Sorry, I liked how focused the university seemed to be in kind of servicing the West, and particularly around those kind of internships being specifically located where the university is, and very well targeted, I felt. My brother also went to Vic Uni earlier and had quite positive things to say about it. And at the time I was living in the western suburbs as well, and most of the voluntary work I was doing was out there. I just felt that it's a university that was quite, I guess, embedded in community. I wanted to pursue that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that we like to say quite often, Patrick, that we're a community-orientated university, and some of those organisations that you've spoken about, so West Justice and the Asylum Seekers Resource Centre, certainly very much ingrained in the fabric of the Western Suburbs community. So really interesting points that you make there. Now, Roger, you've spoken a little bit in the beginning of this about how lawyers and the industry of law itself has been impacted by COVID, but we've also taken some big steps towards pivoting or reinventing our courses into an online format to help support our students. Tell us a bit about the learning experience that students can expect from the College of Law and Justice.
Okay, so it wasn't really a problem for the College of Law and Justice to convert to an online learning environment. In other postgraduate programs that the college has run for many years, its predecessor, when the business faculty and the College of Law and Justice were one, we were running online programs because there was delivery throughout Australia for some of our courses. So we've had experience in doing it. But law is very interesting because some areas of law, which Sasha and Patrick would be aware of, it's very prescriptive in its teaching. And sometimes there's difficulties in an online environment to actually communicate that information. So VU over the years, especially in the areas that I actually teach in, we've developed resources to enable maximization of the online environment. And that's because of the experience that we've had. Whereas comparably, some of the more traditional institutions where classes are conducted in a face-to-face environment might not have had that kind of exposure. So we're lucky in that sense.
So I've had plenty of my questions answered by the panel today, but we did have some questions submitted ahead of time by our prospective students. So I'll divvy them up between the panel. Roger, seeing as we finished with you, I might go straight back to you and ask you whether you can give us some insight into some of the industry partners that Victoria University works with as part of our law programs.
Okay. Besides what Patrick and Sasha mentioned about the community groups that we work with, including asylum seekers, legal aid, we also have partnerships in private practice. In the areas of criminal law, we've got Rob Starry and Associates. I think they've rebranded at the moment. We have some in the area of migration and administrative law. FCG Legal, the firm that I actually work with, partners with Victoria University. There's numerous other smaller firms in the migration field that have partnered with Victoria University. There's others, in fact, there's new partnership opportunities that are coming up all the time. And some of them are even suggested by our students that we could partner with to enable students to actually obtain practical work experience rather than the classroom theoretical environment, which I've got to add is just as important, where many of the lecturers are actually experts in their particular field, where they convey real practical live examples about problems that potential clients may have.
So we do have a number of double degrees available at Victoria University, Roger. We have had a question come through asking whether or not a student could potentially combine a law degree with another area.
Yes. I did mine, for example, many years ago with economics, You could do it at Victoria University in business. Some are doing it with psychology, I gather, which would be a perfect combination, I think, because you partly need to be a psychologist in some instances. I'm sure Patrick would have had that experience. They also have it with criminology and criminal justice. So there's a variety of combinations that you can adopt. And the broader the perspective you have, I know this panel has focused traditionally where VU's strengths lie in the criminal, administrative law, migration law field, but even in commercial law, it's important that we actually broaden our horizons, and business plays an important role in that particular area. So VU offers a variety of programs that you can undertake in conjunction with your law degree.
So Roger, you did mention then our migration law specialisation. So we do offer postgraduate qualifications in this area as well. Tell us a bit about what migration law entails.
So as just to clarify, so we've got a couple of units in the undergraduate area that students can adopt as an option. So migration law is a very interesting area of the law because it involves the interaction with humans, of course, and important human rights implications come out of it. So at the university, and it's one of the few universities in a traditional law school mode that teaches normal migration stream rather than mainly refugee or protection visas. So you learn a very complex piece of legislation, Migration Act and regulations. So you learn about visas, when people get into trouble, visa cancellations. I'm sure Patrick and even Sasha during her work experience would have seen where people get convicted, their visas might have an impact on it. So visa cancellations take place. There's a lot of review mechanisms that are also available, both merits review at the Administrative Appeals Tribunal and judicial. It's one of the more interesting areas of human rights. And at the moment, it's probably still the busiest area because in the federal jurisdiction, most of the cases that come out on a daily basis are migration related.
It's a really growing area of law.
Yes.
A question that we get asked quite often, Patrick, and I might defer to you because I know that you mentioned that you'd done some work in the Shepparton area, not far from where you grew up, was that whether or not students are expected or will need to work in the city or a main area once they graduate, or if there's opportunities in more regional and rural areas.
Yeah, great question. There definitely are excellent opportunities in the regions. As I mentioned, that's where I grew up and it was quite nice to come back. But I think if you do find work in the country, it's the breadth of practice is a fantastic place to start learning. I know, particularly when I started at Legal Aid, the exposure I had some exposure to child protection, family violence, obviously a lot of crime, but also quite serious indictable crime as well, all within my first 8 months, really. And I think that sort of exposure, something that might take a little bit longer, if you're potentially in a bigger organisation with more specialists, or just with larger numbers of practitioners, I guess, even within an organisation like Legal Aid. So I think the country is an excellent place to practice and particularly to start practice. In terms of job availability, Legal Aid I've only ever practiced in the regions, so I'm not really sure comparatively where it's harder to get work, but I know that there can be some difficulty attracting people back to work in the country or to work to the country as a starting point. But I think it's an excellent place to practice. Strongly encourage it.
And one final question, I might ask both yourself, Patrick and Sasha, whether or not finding a job after completing the course is hard. It's a hard question to answer. We might start with you, Patrick. How did you find the job hunt once you graduated?
Look, I feel quite lucky. I do think it is very competitive and is quite difficult. I was also probably lucky that I had a pretty strong idea of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to practice. I'm kind of probably about halfway through my legal studies. And so from there, I spent a lot of time trying to build skills that would allow me to pursue that sort of career. And so I knew I wanted to work in crime. I knew I wanted to work with particularly vulnerable cohorts of people. And so I spent a lot of time volunteering and doing paid work in those sectors. And so by the time I got to a point where I was employable, I'd kind of built up some skills in that area. But I think, look, it's hard for me to tell, I guess. I think it is challenging, but it's a great sector to work in.
And before we wrap up, Sasha, you're just about to begin your journey into the workforce. Tell us a bit about how you're planning to approach the job market.
Yeah, good question. Well, like I said before, I know exactly where I want to go. So I'm applying for more positions within criminal law, and just sort of within the areas of interest that I have. Because I've had such a variety of legal placements that I've done, I've seen the different areas. I know what I want to do, so I know how I'm going to apply, I know how I'm going to approach it. And since finishing my practical legal training, which was recently, I've been applying for a few jobs. I've had a couple of interviews quite recently, so I am progressing quite quickly, which is good. I've got my fingers crossed, and I'll just keep searching, hunting for what I want.
I think with that attitude, you're definitely on the right track, that's for sure. And that's about all we have time for today. So I would like to thank you so much, Sasha, Patrick and Roger, for taking the time to speak with me today about the courses available at Victoria University in our law and justice area and the opportunities available for our graduates as well. I think it's been really insightful to hear about the different supports that not only the academics, that the industry, but that our students have within those courses. It's been really insightful for me to find out a bit more about that. And hopefully everybody tuning in at home or from wherever they are has found this insightful or enjoyable or has learned a few things about the opportunities available to them as Victoria University students. So thank you, Roger. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck with your future studies at Victoria University.